Hello everybody, welcome to Remake It with Miss Lisa. The project we will be working on today is making a fantastic plastic basket from an empty plastic container. For this project you will need just a few simple materials. First of all, you will need a plastic container of some kind. Today we are going to use a half-gallon milk jug with the labels removed. An easy way to remove the labels is to use something like Goo Gone or maybe nail polish remover or rubbing alcohol. You'll need a pair of heavy-duty scissors, a stapler, a couple of strips of cardboard that can be any length you would like and any width you would like. These would be used for the handle for your basket. And you will need a few pieces of newspaper. Finally, the most important thing you will need is yarn. Anything will do, any colors, any combination of colors, any sizes or thicknesses will be fine. Even if you have scraps, you can put the scraps together to make a beautiful design on your fantastic plastic basket. Okay, so to begin, you're going to start with your plastic container. I am going to cut the top of my container off. I'm going to first decide how tall I would like my basket to be. I think I want to go maybe about this high, make a mark, and cut it across. Go around. This might be a good job for your grown-up to do because it can be a little tough to cut through this thick plastic. Let's set it down on the table and make sure the top of it is nice and even. That looks pretty good. If you have any stray bits of plastic, you can take your scissors and clip those right off. And this is the part we're going to use to make the basket. This part can either go into your recycling or can be repurposed to make another craft, such as this fancy elephant nightlight. We'll save that for another time. Okay, this is going to be the base of your basket. What we're going to do now is take our heavy-duty scissors to cut what will be called the stakes. These are the pieces of the basket that go up and down on which we will do our colorful weaving. To make your stakes, simply take your large scissors and cut down the side of your basket. Some plastic containers will have a very thin line here around the bottom. That can help you get all of your stakes nice and easy if you cut straight down to that line. The important thing when you are making stakes is to make an odd number of stakes. And when we get to the weaving process, you will see why it is important to have an odd number of stakes. I'm going to go all the way around the basket. Keep cutting until I get all the way around. Okay, now before I finish this final side, I'm going to count and see how many stakes I have now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have a nice even number, but I want an odd number. There's 13, 14, 15, and then if I cut this one in half, 16 and 17. You'll notice that some of my stakes are a little skinnier than other stakes. don't worry about it. We're going to be covering our stakes with some colorful yarn. Before you begin working on your basket, I'd like to introduce you to two different weaving techniques. The first technique is called the plain technique. The second is referred to as twining. Both techniques are very easy to use, but they do result in two different kinds of stitches. You'll notice that the plain technique is a little bit thinner and the twining technique is a little bit thicker. Both of them work equally well. The one you choose is up to you. The first technique I'd like to show you is the plain technique. The plain technique involves a simple over, under, or front and back kind of stitch. For example, you take your yarn, which is also known as the weave, bring it over and then under. Or we could call it front and then back. So you'll go in front of one stake, behind the next stake, in front of one stake, behind the next stake, and then in front again. Be sure to use your fingers to push the yarn together. That will cover up the stakes as you work. In front, and then back, in front, oops, behind, in front, and behind. And then when you reach the end, wrap the yarn all the way around the stake and continue your pattern. So now you'll see the yarn is in front, so it will go behind the next stake. It will go in front of the following stake and behind the next stake. Use your fingers to push the yarn together to cover your stakes as you work. So one more time, we'll go in front, behind, in front, behind, and now we're at the end. So I'm going to pull the yarn around the front and continue the pattern like so. The other technique you can use is known as twining. If you choose to use twining, be sure that you have an odd number of stakes. I had talked about that before. It's not as important when using the plain technique, but when twining you need an odd number, otherwise your basket stakes will not stay tied together and your basket will just flop open. Twining usually involves using two pieces of weave or two pieces of yarn, but in this case we'll just use one piece of yarn and it works just as well. So you'll start with your yarn, and this is different than the plain technique, so watch very carefully. You're going to pull your yarn across two stakes and then put the yarn behind the second stake. Now you're going to wrap the yarn around that second stake and pull it across two stakes. See, the yarn is pulled across two stakes. I've attached it here on the other side of this stake, and I'm going to wrap it around the second stake and use my fingers to push the yarn down. I'm pulling the yarn across two stakes. There's the yarn going across two stakes. Now I'm going to wrap the yarn around the second stake, one stake, two stakes. I'm going to pull the yarn across the front of the two stakes and wrap it around the second stake and continue like so. One stake, two stakes, wrap the yarn around the second stake, pull and wrap, pull and wrap. When you get to the end, you wrap your yarn around your final stake And now you're going to start again from here, pulling around these two stakes. See, the yarn is in front of the two stakes, and wrap it around the second stake, pushing the yarn down to close the stitches, and then you'll continue to the end. Now we are ready to begin weaving our plastic basket. Choose a color of yarn that you would like to start with, and select one of the stakes on your plastic basket, preferably one that's near a corner. And you're going to tie the end of your yarn to the stake. You can make a nice double knot so it stays firmly in place while you're pulling on it. And push it all the way down to the bottom. Like this. Be sure that your knot is on the inside. That way you won't be able to see this little tail of yarn sticking out the front of your basket. It will be hidden inside. But you will want to pull your yarn through so you can get ready to weave. At this point, you could cut a long piece of yarn from your skein or from your yarn ball, whichever you would prefer. I think I'm going to cut a piece off of my yarn ball. It's a little easier to work with if it's not attached to something. And now you can begin weaving using the technique that you decided on, either the plain weaving technique or the twining technique. I'm going to just continue weaving here with the plain technique, the front, back technique, and I'm going to go all the way around the basket, going like over and under, front, back, front, back. You can see that the yarn is sometimes in front of the stakes and sometimes behind the stakes. I'm going to continue all the way around. Remembering to push the yarn down to the bottom so that the yarn will eventually cover up all of the stakes. And it can be a little tricky because these stakes are not very stiff. They're a little bendy. Remembering to push the yarn down to the bottom. And now I'm going to go over and under again. Over and under. I've reached the corner. Now I'm just continuing the way I was going with front, back, over, under, however you would like to think of it. Front, back, remembering to push the yarn down to the bottom. Front and back. There's no need really to pull too tight on the yarn. Just let it be kind of loose. You don't want to pull too tight, otherwise eventually you'll start to make your basket squish together like this, and you'd like your basket to be nice and tall so you can fit some fun stuff in your basket when it's finished. Over and under, over and under, remembering to push the yarn down to the bottom very gently with your fingers to get a nice solid weave. Okay, I've gone around one whole time with the blue yarn, and I think I would like to change the color now. So to change the color, leave a little bit of a tail with the color that you were working with. Choose another color. I like this nice bright orange. Put the two ends of your yarn together. Roll the yarn around your finger. Push the two ends through the hole and pull. Now your two pieces of yarn are tightly secured together. Now we can continue weaving the way that we were. So I'm going to go over and under, over and under. Keep going. Okay, and now the good thing is we measured just enough to get the new tails to stay on the inside of our basket, so they won't show on the outside. And you can see now we have changed colors, and we have the orange coming in on top of the blue, like this. So we continue going around, over and under, until you're ready to change your color. Or until you run out of yarn, whichever comes first. And of course, remember to use your fingers to push the yarn together so you don't see too much of the stakes that make up the foundation of your plastic basket. And let's continue. As you are weaving, you might discover that the top of your basket is starting to collapse inward on itself. If that should happen, take a piece of newspaper, crumble it up into a ball, and place it inside your basket. This will provide a little bit of structure and stability and keep the stakes in shape as you are weaving. Finished with my basket. As you can see, some of the stakes are still sticking up. That's okay. Don't worry about it. What we're going to do now is add one more row of color to finish off the weaving. So I'm going to clip the color I was just using and add it to a new color. I think I'd like to use the blue that I started with. Okay, there we go. And now going to go around one more time so I can get one row of blue at the last bit of my basket. I'm having trouble getting these tails to stay on the inside. That's okay. All right, I'm going around. One more row of blue. Okay, remember to use your fingers to push your threads all the way down. Actually, I think we need to go around one more time so we get a full row of blue. Let's do that. That would be pretty. Okay. Almost at the end. All right, and when you've reached the end, leave about 3 or 4 inches of the yarn as a tail. Weave a little bit of the tail around, and let's find a good spot on the inside where we can tie off the tail. Let's see, probably a corner would be a good spot to tie off the tail. So I'm going to wrap it around the stake, pull the tail into the inside of the basket. Make a loop with some of your yarn. Push the tail through the loop. Let's see if I can show that to you. And give it a tug. And now it's nice and secure. Okay. Now we're ready for the final touches. If you would like, you can leave the stakes sticking up like this if you feel the stakes are a little bit too long. Have your grown-up take the heavy-duty scissors and just go around and give them a trim. And remember to put these little pieces of plastic into your recycling bin. There we go. If you'd like, you can leave your basket just like this. You can fill it up with stuff, put it on your desk or put it in your play area. If you would like, you can add a handle similar to this one. That's where these two strips of cardboard come in. Decide how big you'd like your handle. This looks like it might be just about right. Use your stapler to staple the cardboard to the side of your basket. You might need a grown-up to help you with this part too. It can be a little tricky. Bend the handle over to the other side. And now your basket is complete. Enjoy.